everyone.
Hello.
Welcome to Three Things Live and happy St. Patty's Day.
Yes.
We both got the memo to wear
I
green.
think so.
No pinching today, folks.
None
of that. No. Who came up with that, tradition anyway?
I don't know. As far as pinching goes, yeah, that one I don't know. I know that how the green with the St. Patrick's Day and all that came about.
Right.
But I'm not quite sure about the pinching part of
Well,
it.
I hope all of you are wearing green today. And we, fortunately, we're sitting on green chairs today as well. So you got to love that. Welcome to Three Things Live, where theme number 1 is something to smile about. Theme number 2 is something to learn. And theme number 3 is something to discover. Let's go. Hi everyone, welcome to Three Things Live. I'm Kris here at my girlfriend's quilt shop, and so happy to have you here with us today on this St. Patty's Day. So happy St. Patrick's Day to all of you who celebrate, and even if you don't, I hope you're wearing green. And as Susan said in the comments, happy top of the day, top of the morning, top of the morning, top of the afternoon. Can you say all the things? Can we? I don't know. I don't know the lingo, but I'm here for it anyway. And I also have Miss Sandra with me today. How are you, Sandra?
I'm good, thank you.
Good.
I'm good.
I see you're sporting your green, but this isn't just any sweater. You got to tell us about this.
No, it's not. I had an aunt that did a lot of traveling, and she actually picked this sweater up in Ireland.
What?
And it is, authentic, that merino wool.
It's beautiful.
It came from Ireland. So I thought, you know what? You have to wear it on St. Patrick's Day,
exactly.
right?
Absolutely, you do.
You have to.
So. Oh, it's perfect. And it happens to be one of our favorite colors around here.
Of course, yeah.
So we're going to just call this Happy Girlfriend's Day as well, right?
Yes, exactly.
With the girlfriend green. All right. Well, we've had a fun week this last week with galas. Such a great time, and so hopefully all of you who were a part of that have been able to get some rest.
Yes, because I'm sure there's a few of them that didn't make it home quite as they expected to with the dynamic weather that's going on around the country, but we're glad that everybody was able to make it home.
Definitely.
And I from all the feedback I've heard, it was an incredible time.
We had a great time, for sure, definitely. So with St. Patrick's Day being on this day, we thought it was only befitting if we combined a little bit of St. Patrick's Day humor with a little bit of sewing humor. Are you ready for this, Sandra?
I'm ready.
Now, okay, all of you at home, you can just bring out the big old bell and go gong, if you need to. But let's go ahead and sit with us for a moment as we humor ourselves with a little bit of St. Patrick's Day sewing fun. Are you ready?
Okay.
Okay, let's see if you guys can get this. First off, why don't quilters ever need a leprechaun's pot of gold? Ooh. Why don't quilters ever need a leprechaun's pot of gold? All right, you ready? Because they already have a stash worth a fortune. Let's hear it. Yes, I'm here for that.
Yes, I totally understand that one.
Yes, we do. Okay, are you ready for the next one? Go ahead, Sandra.
What's a leprechaun's favorite sewing notion?
What's a leprechaun's favorite sewing notion? How about this? It's a lucky seam ripper because mistakes are magically undone.
Yes.
I don't know.
I don't know
know.
how magically they're undone sometimes. Sometimes it's quite a challenge to undo some of those mistakes that we make. But yeah.
Yes. Okay. Next
I'm
up.
renaming my seam ripper.
There you
He's
go.
not Jack the Ripper anymore. He's going to be called the Lucky.
Oh, the Lucky.
He's going to be called Lucky.
Because he's magical.
Exactly. Exactly.
How about this? Why did the quilt block turn green? Why did the quilt block turn green? Because it got shamrocked by a tricky seam allowance. Okay, that was a little bit of a stretch, just saying. But get it? Get it? You got shamrocked by a tricky seam allowance. Okay, maybe not so good. All right, how about this one? Why was the quilt so lucky? Any ideas? Why was the quilt so lucky? Because it was sewn with charm squares.
Lucky Charms.
Yes!
Lucky
See?
Charms.
I think that one's pretty good.
I actually purchased some Lucky Charms for my grandkids the other day.
Did you?
They're all green, and they make your milk turn green. And they love them.
And they love it.
They're like, Nana, this is awesome.
Oh my goodness, too funny.
Yeah.
All right, looks like we've got another one. What do you get when you cross a leprechaun with a quilter? Oh. What do you get when you cross a leprechaun with a quilter?
Someone who can stitch up a bit of magic.
Now
Yes.
that is so sweet.
Yes,
There
that's a
we
good
go.
one.
That's a big heart.
Yeah, I like that one.
All
Those are
right.
awesome.
Well, we
Yes,
hope those
yes.
scenes brought a smile to you today. Oh my goodness. You know, you got a sewing show. It's on St. Patrick's Day. You got to bring the two together.
Exactly,
Why not?
Exactly. Why not?
Well, this week, my friends, we are going back to the basics. And with that, you know, it's something that we get questions about all the time, and that is binding. And so whether you've been sewing and quilting for years and years, or you are brand new, or you're somewhere in between, this is the week you don't want to miss, because today and tomorrow we're talking about all things binding. And we're going to share with you some of our best tips today. And then on Wednesday, make sure you stick with us because it's book club. And
I've been listening.
have you? Have you been enjoying the book?
Yes.
It's a great book.
It's really good.
It is fantastic. And it's only fitting that we do it on the week of St. Patrick's Day because it takes place in Ireland.
Yes.
So if you haven't started the book, it's not too late. Hurry and get caught up so you can join us on Wednesday. And even if you don't read the book, we still want you to hang out with us on Wednesday and be inspired by a new project that was inspired by the book. All right. Well, Sandra and I are going to go ahead and head over to the sewing table right now as we share with you some of our best tips for doing binding. We're talking about how to calculate the binding of what you need, how to miter your corners, how to join edges, how to join the ends, how to bring a back to the front, how to machine piece and also do it by hand. You name it, we have got all the things, all the goods for you. In fact, if you know of somebody who is not watching today and you think, you know what, they might really enjoy learning about binding, give them a ring and say, you got to tune in because today is a show you don't want to miss. We're going back to the basics and we'll be back right after this.
Last week on Three Things Live, we discovered that Scrappy's where it's at.
That's right. And we reported on our recent trip to the Sew Expo in Puyallup, Washington. We showed you how to make some super fun St. Patrick's Day decor, how to spruce up your attire, adding a ribbon star, and creative ways to use a curved log cabin ruler.
You know what makes this so amazing is that you probably already have all you need at home to make these things.
Oh, that makes sense. People still don't know about all the amazing things they're missing on Three Things Live.
Don't let that be you. See all this and more by watching every Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday live on YouTube and Facebook at 1 p.m. Mountain and 3 p.m. Eastern. Also, you can catch up on what you've missed by using the links below.
Yes! So watch Three Things Live, where we always have something to make you smile,
Something to learn.
and something to discover. Let's go!
My Girlfriend's Quilt Shop is playing matchmaker, and we'll help you find your sewing soulmate during our Meet Your Match event on Saturday, March 22nd. Be here from 11 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. in our Logan, Utah store. There will be finger food and door prizes. Matchmakers Kris and Mike will introduce you to all the available sergers, sewing, and embroidery machines we carry. They are ready to make you a deal that will make your heart sing. They'll answer your questions about any of our beautiful models, so you'll know you've found your machine match made in heaven.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Three Things Live. I'm Kris.
And I'm Sandra.
And we're here to talk about all things binding. Now, get ready to take some notes. Well, don't you worry. We've got a handout for you as well. But you definitely don't want to miss some of these tips that we're going to share.
I agree.
Rapid fire today, because we have a lot to share with you.
Yes.
So, a couple of questions that came up through the transition was someone asked about the bowl fillers. Yes, the older ones are in the club.
I believe so.
So, and Liz, I thought that was interesting. You said in the comments, I round my corners so I don't have to make mitered corners. Oh, Liz, we got you covered today, sister.
I think after today,
Yes.
if you really pay attention, you'll be able to master a miter corner, and you will do wonderful.
Absolutely. All right. And then one more question. Joanna said, what is the name of the book that we're reading? It is What the Wind Knows. So there you go. All right, Peggy said binding is her favorite.
Oh gosh,
You know,
I used to hate binding.
Same.
I used to not like to do it at
Yeah.
all. I'm like, how do I join this? How do I make it look right? I used to not like it, but once I got it figured out,
Exactly. It's not that bad at all.
It's not hard at all.
Would you hand over for me one of the binding strips?
Okay.
Let me just talk about, for those who may not know what we're referring to, I want to be sure and show you this. This is what's called binding. We put it around the edges of our quilt, and that is what finishes our quilt. And so, one of the first questions I want to address is, how do I know how much binding to cut? All right, and there's a great math formula out there. And so whether you're taking notes or you want to download our tip sheet that's available for you, either way, but there's a really good math formula, and this is what you want to know. First off, you're going to take the measurement of your quilt and you add up all four sides together. So let's go ahead and head over to my little paper. We're going to do a little math. Are you ready for this?
I'm not great at math, but this works great.
Hey,
my
do you have a calculator?
I know, I was going to
say. All right.
I don't even have my calculator on me.
Oh, okay. I don't have a calculator either. Mr. Eric, do you have a calculator we could use?
Right there in my bag is my phone.
Let's go ahead and pretend that the quilt is 60 inches by 72. So I'm going to write this down. Okay. So we have a nice throw size quilt, 60 by 72. So if I were to add up all four sides, we're going to do 60 plus 60 plus 72 plus 72. So if you've got a calculator at home, go ahead and give this a whirl as well. So what are we looking at? 264 inches?
Uh-huh.
All right, so 264 inches. Now, I'm going to add the number 10 to it. That's how many inches we need to have to get around the quilt. Well, why do I add 10? The reason is because I want to take into account my mitered corners. I also want to take into account my overlap at the end for when I join the ends. So 264 plus 10 is 274 inches. Now, I know I need 274 inches to go around the quilt.
Okay.
But how do I know how many strips that is?
Okay.
So how wide, all of you answer this for me, how wide is a typical bolt of fabric or a yard of fabric, the width of it? Usually it's about
42
inches.
Yep.
Okay.
That's typical. Sometimes a little more, sometimes a little
45.
less. Yeah.
So you know what number I use? I use 40 just to be safe.
That's a great, yeah.
Okay. So we're going to take the total number of inches and divide it by 40. What number does that give us?
6.85.
6.85. Well, that's how many strips we're going to cut. But can we cut 6.85 strips?
No.
Not necessarily.
No, I mean, no, not really.
No.
I mean, you could.
So we're going to round it up.
Round it up.
So if we round it up, we've got 7 strips. 7 strips, folks. That's how many strips you know how much to cut.
Okay.
Now, do you like your strips to be 2.5 inches or 2.25 inches? What do you like?
Normally, of course, it all depends on what I'm working on. Okay.
Sure.
But normally, I go with the 2.5.
Okay. So we'll go ahead with 2.5. I normally like 2.25, but it's totally a personal preference.
Right.
So this is the last piece of math you have to do. You're going to take 7 strips times 2.5, and what number does that give us?
17.5.
17.5 inches. Well,
that's a half a yard.
exactly.
Half a yard, right
a
there.
half yard
Boom.
is 18 inches. So I know that for my throw size quilt, I'm rounding that up to 18 inches, which is 1/2 yard. Whee! Lots of smiles all around.
Yeah.
Hearts. All the hearts. Give me all the heart eyes.
Yeah,
right, Sandra?
exactly.
That's how easy it is to do.
Yeah.
So why would you need to know this? Well, it would be for if you were going into a fabric shop and maybe you had an idea for a quilt, but you didn't necessarily have a pattern that told you how much fabric you need, then do the math right here. Yeah. Or if you're at home and you want to see, go through your scraps and try and figure out how much, if you have enough yardage to be able to do a binding, this is the math you would do. So it really is very simple. The first time you do it might take a little bit of thinking. The second time, you might have to think again. The third time, you'll be like, I got this.
Third time's a charm,
Third
right?
time's a charm. I know exactly how to do this.
Yes.
But again, if you missed any of that, guess what? We have got a little tip sheet for you. And the first part of it is how many strips of binding do I cut? And it's got the whole math formula right there for you.
Perfect.
So very, very simple.
Very resourceful. That's great.
So what do you think about that? I mean,
think, yeah.
and what do all of you think about that? Is this something that you could do?
I think so.
Yeah.
I definitely could.
Yeah.
I'll
And,
definitely keep that right on my board.
You know, exactly. And to keep in conjunction with the St. Patty's Day theme, the third is the lucky charm.
That's right.
There you go. The
That's
third
right.
time's the lucky charm. All right. Yeah, Christy says she cheats. She uses the Robert Kaufman app. Yeah, you could definitely do that. There's some apps out there. We also have an app on our website for that too, to find out how much binding. But you know what?
Nice.
Sometimes I don't always trust the apps. Sometimes they give you way more than you need.
Oh, I agree.
So-
There's a few of them that they're telling me I need this much backing or whatever. And I'm
Right.
like, yeah,
Well, I don't need that much. I can get away with less.
Exactly. So
There
it's
you
great
go.
to figure it out for yourself.
Definitely.
That's for sure.
All right, so next up, we talked about how to calculate binding. Now let's talk about how to prepare your binding. So when you're preparing your binding, let's talk about 2.5 inch strips. Well, obviously you need one long continuous strip to get around the entire quilt, right? So Sandra, why don't you go ahead and show us how to do that?
Okay, so the first thing you're going to do is you're going to cut, obviously, you're going to cut your strips, and then you're going to put them together.
Yeah.
So what we're going to do here is
Let's go ahead and show right here,
right
and
here?
then we'll go to the machine
Okay.
to sew it.
I've got a couple of strips here, and the first one we're going to just kind of put that out flat, and then we're going to take the other strip that we want to put together, and we're going to put it right on top of it at an angle, 45-degree angle. Okay,
Or 90-degree angle,
90-degree
perpendicular.
Yes. So I myself like to leave ever so slightly a little bit of a end of the one strip here so that I can see where my points are.
I'm with you on that. And let's
Okay.
see if we can get a closer shot right here, because I want to make sure that everyone can see this little bit of fabric that Sandra has just kind of hanging out there, right there.
Okay.
Okay. Now, Sandra, tell us why you do that, because I think there's a really important reason for
Yeah,
this.
there is, because if you put it up close. So move it over there, Kris, so it's end to end. Sometimes you have a really hard time seeing where the end of this other end is, either there or there.
Exactly.
So say I'm coming from here and I'm going to sew down to there, and if that's covered it, I can't really tell where I'm at.
Exactly.
So if I bring it out ever so slightly, then I can see where the ends are where I need to stitch.
Now here's another tip for you. Always audition your fabric before you stitch it. So if Sandra's thinking, I'm going to stitch right here, then we're going to pretend there's a seam line there. Does it fold open so that it creates one long continuous strip? Yes. But if you were confused and you thought, oh, I'm going to go from this corner to this corner, let's audition. Let's pretend that, we're going to stitch on that line. Look what happens.
It's not going to work.
No, it's kind of a little crazy. So always audition if you're never quite sure. All right.
And a lot of times I will take it and pan it.
Yes, you could do that.
And or you can take your little magic ruler and you can draw a line.
Okay. And that can be very helpful if you're trying to follow a line here.
Follow a line of any kind.
Okay, let's go ahead and do that.
So then we're going to take this to the machine.
Okay.
And it doesn't matter whether you start at which end of it you start at, top or bottom, doesn't really matter as long as you know which way you're going to be going. So I'm going to put that down like that. Need my foot up and no foot pedal, so I'm going to do a stop start here and see if that works for us. How's that sound, Kris?
You betcha. Yes. Whoops.
That key cannot be used at this time. Okay,
How
then
about if I
guess
just hurry and plug this in for you?
Plug this foot in.
All right, there we go.
I was going to say, I got a red light. It's not telling me I
Can go.
can go. Let's see. Now, this right now is set to where it is on, and so I need to move that over a little bit because my needle is set on the side. There we go. And then we're just going to go. Oh, it's set for a zigzag stitch. I don't want that either. Needle up. Let's start over again. You know what I'm going to do, Kris? I'm going to put this on the 1/4 inch. 2 or 3?
2.
2. That's what I thought. I'm like, okay. All right, let's start this over.
Oh, Sandra.
Come on, there we go. I'll get this
You
right.
got this. Okay, there we go.
All right, there we go.
I think there must be some leprechauns here,
Something.
playing a few little tricks on you. There we go.
Okay, and then we're at that point, and
Okay, so you can see that she's sewn from the outside edge to outside edge, and then right here. So at this point, you'll also trim off about 1/4 inch from that seam line, and then just fold it over and press.
it.
Now there's a great little tool that we want to show off today, and so this is how to make it really super simple.
I'm going to use a different one.
Okay.
Okay, because that one's already folded over.
Perfect.
So what I've got here is just a regular strip of binding, okay, that I've cut in the 2.5 inch strip. So with that, we're going to take it and we're going to put it in our binding ease, what we call a binding ease.
And I know many people out there have
Already
this.
have it.
Yes.
So this has 2 small flaps here that you're
Like
going to
little
put your
belt
binding.
loops.
Yeah, loops, that's what we call them. So I'm going to start this off by folding over my binding, and I'm going to stick it in that little loop like that. And then I'm going to come over to this side and do it that way. So if I do it like that, and then I'm going to take my iron and I'm just going to set it down on top of that. And then I'm going to grab one end and the other end, and then I'm just going to slide it. And slide it. Just
this makes
ever
it
so
so
slightly.
fast.
Just take it
So
and
quick.
slide my binding through that and pull it through.
You know how much faster you can get with this? You know, if I'm doing a big, large quilt, maybe a queen or a king,
Yeah.
wow, I can get my binding put together lickety-split.
Yeah, really fast.
Okay,
And there we go.
so that's how we fold it over.
And now you've got your binding all ready to go, and it's
Love it. Okay.
folded and ready to go. So,
So-
that's how you use that. So,
So
that
once
works
we
out
have
really
it-
nice.
So once we have that prepped, why don't you go ahead and start showing us how it goes on the quilt?
Okay.
You can choose whether you want to do it from the front or the back, either way.
Yep.
Which way are you going to do it today?
You know, there's not a front and a back on this, so I don't really care.
Well,
But normally, okay,
Yes.
normally I always do mine from the front and flip it to the back.
okay,
Okay.
depending on how you want to do it.
It doesn't. It's the main reason is that I want my finished binding so that it's just a fold.
Yeah, I love
I
that.
don't want to show that stitching on the top.
Right.
But it's a
personal preference,
personal
yes.
preference. If you want it to show, then that's fine.
Yeah.
But normally that's the way I will do my quilts.
Okay.
So when we start this, I usually give myself, 3, 4, 5 inches.
Sure.
Okay, before I start my binding. So I'm gonna lay it on my quilt backing, my quilt, and this is just a quilt sandwich that we're gonna use. And I am going to just start stitching that down, okay? So,
So right now, Sandra's going to show us how she miters the corner.
So as I come down, and it's really funny, Kris, because I was actually talking with my daughter this weekend.
Uh-huh.
And she's going, Mom, I need to get this quilt binded, but I can't remember how to do it. I said, Tracy, watch on Monday.
Okay, shout out to Tracy, who's watching right now, her mom go.
Yes. So what I do is I go far enough to where I'm about 1/4 of an inch from the corner.
Okay.
Okay. And a lot of times your presser foot will have that 1/4 inch mark on it. So just as I get to that mark on my presser foot, I'm going to stop, needle down.
Okay.
Okay. Then I'm going to pivot this, and then I'm going to sew off to the corner
Yeah, at a 45-degree
at a
angle.
45-degree angle.
Now, you can do that or you don't have to. If you didn't want to, you could just I would do a
tack that.
reinforcement
Yes.
stitch right there.
Yep, just a reinforcement right there. Okay. Then I'm going to take it probably
Let's go
over
ahead
here.
over- yeah.
Let's bring it over here. That's a little bit easier for everybody
Okay.
to see.
So what Sandra was doing, she was sewing in this direction all the way down, and she stopped at a 1/4 inch from the corner. Now, if your presser foot doesn't have that little marking, what I will do is as I get closer, I just have a little ruler out, and I'll just make that little marking with a pin. Okay, so I know
Okay.
exactly where to stop.
Right.
Okay, now we need to, get down to this side. So we're going to turn this around. And go ahead, Sandra. Tell us
Okay.
from here.
So at this point, I'm going to turn it, and then I'm going to take my binding and I'm going to flip it up this way. And I'm going to make sure that I have that 45-degree angle from my corner here to the corner here of my binding. So I'm going to take that and just kind of push it, press or finger press it, whatever. And then I'm going to bring it down, and I'm going to make sure that my ends right here match with the edge of my quilt. So I'm going to bring that down, and then I'm going to start right here, and again, 1/4 inch all the way down.
Okay, let's see if we can get an up close of this one as well, because I want to make sure that everyone can see very well that because she did that 45-degree sew off, that gives her a barrier already to be able to know where to go, right?
Know
To
where
stop.
to stop.
Here. And again, as she mentioned, you are starting to sew straight from the fold.
Correct.
Down. A lot of people think, they get confused and think that you're supposed to do a 1/4 inch down. No, 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 no. You start from the very top and go all the way down. So go ahead and let's just go about halfway down there.
Okay.
And then we'll show them what it looks like as you turn it out.
Okay.
So again, she's starting at the very top.
Some people will reinforce this, and you can. Maybe just a couple of stitches is all.
Sure.
And if that's what you want to do, then that's fine. That works too. But you don't necessarily have to.
Okay.
And if you want, we could use one of those other sandwiches over there, Kris.
Yeah.
So I am going to just take this down, and once again, as I get to the end there, I'm going to take this, pivot, and sew off.
I love that,
And now
Sandra.
I'm ready to do my next corner.
Yeah. All right. Any
So-
questions so far that we're seeing? Jill said, where do you usually start, on the side or bottom of the quilt?
That's a great question, because it depends on where you want your ends to meet again.
But if you do the trick of having your ends meet in a certain way, you'll never know where it started
You'll never,
and
yeah,
where
exactly.
it ended.
You won't.
Right?
But I'll normally start on the bottom.
Yeah.
But if your quilt doesn't matter, it doesn't have a top or bottom, it doesn't matter. Exactly.
And I never start on a corner.
No.
Always
Yes.
start kind of in the middle on one of the sides, and you can
Yes.
choose whichever side you want.
Exactly.
So, okay, that's how easy it is to miter the corner. Liz, are you watching? Does that help? We hope so.
Yeah, I hope so.
And if there's any other questions about mitering, let us know, because it really is very, very simple to do.
Yes.
And I think one of the key points is stopping at that, 1/4 inch to the corner and sewing off. I love how you did that.
Yes. It just makes it easier when you're pulling that it just kind of gives you that little bit of guidance.
Yeah. Definitely. Okay, the next thing we're going to show you is 2 different ways on how to close your ends, because I know that's another issue that so many of us have, and I did for years. I thought I could never get it to go right, but I've got 2 different ways to show you today. So let's look at the first way, and that is this. All right, so we already have one where the binding has been sewn on, but let me show you. If we were to have started this, and you notice that Sandra had started a few inches down, right? One of the ways is to do like a tuck, tuck it into bed.
Yes. Yeah.
Tuck the little guy into bed underneath the covers, and this is what I mean by that. What you do is, with your first strip, you're going to fold it over at a 45-degree angle. So it looks like this, because you want a nice clean edge right there.
So that's the strip that's on the bottom right now.
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
Definitely. So then, when it's folded over, you can see that I've created a little pocket right here. So it's kind of like the bedding. You've got your bottom sheet, and now here's your top sheet. So you can see here, again, folded 45 and then folded in half again. So by the time you come around with this second piece, all you have to do is open this up, tuck it in, and bring this over top. This is probably the simplest way to do the binding. And you definitely want to make sure and just kind of pull on it, just kind of maneuver this around a little bit so that it's nice and tight here. Now, if you've got binding that's, flapping in the wind here, then yes, certainly cut it off, trim it off to just about an inch further.
You don't want a lot of overlap.
opening.
You don't want a lot
No.
of bulk in your binding as you're going through, because you can see with that, we've only gone over maybe an inch over where
Exactly.
it folds over at this point right here.
Exactly. So then you just take it to your machine, and now you stitch it all the way down. And then when this comes over top, it just folds in real nicely right here, and it's going to look like one of your mitered seams. All right?
Yeah.
So any questions about this one? Peggy says in the comments that she likes this method for small projects. 1000% I agree with you, Peggy.
Yes.
This is the method I do if I'm doing like a hot pad, for example, very small. I don't have a lot of wiggle room.
You don't have a lot of room to make those two ends come together.
Exactly.
It's a little bit harder. You're right.
That's exactly right.
Peggy, you're exactly right. For a smaller project, maybe a small table runner or a small wall hanging or something like that, definitely is how I would use that method.
Absolutely. So here's the second way of doing it, and this is my preferred method when doing most of my projects.
Quilts. Yes.
And that is this. The first thing you're going to do, this again is my first piece. This is the second piece that's coming over top. But again, remembering what Sandra said earlier, that we're going to start a few inches in. You want to leave a tail flapping in the wind, just like this. All right, so we start here, we go around, we miter our corners. Now we come around to the second piece. How do we join these ends? Well, a really good tip for you is this. You're gonna have quite a bit falling over here, right? Well, what you do is you just simply place this over top, so it just falls right over top of, this intersects right here. From the place that it intersects, you're going to measure over however wide this strip was cut originally. So in this example, it was cut at 2.5 inches, right? Now, if it was, so 2.5 inches is my magic number. If I cut my binding to 2.25 inches, my magic number would be 2.25 inches, but this is going to be 2.5. So what I do is I can take my ruler, and from this intersection, I'm going to measure over 2.25 or 2.5, depending on what I had. And that is where I trim that off. That's the ticket. Now, another method, if you don't want to take the ruler out, is simply remembering you're going to have a lot of leftover binding right here. I'll just cut a piece of that binding off.
Yes.
And I lay it over top.
I do that a lot.
And then I know what my measurement is because I have the exact template to follow.
Right.
And then I just cut that off. So from this point.
Now, Kris, I do know that sometimes people will cut it maybe just a little bit smaller.
You could do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just because a lot of times it doesn't, when you do sew it together, you might have a little bit of a pucker as you ease that in. So I have a tendency to do it just maybe 1/8 of an inch smaller.
Okay. I think that's a great suggestion.
As you put it together, it lays flat and nice.
Definitely. Okay, I love that. That's a great tip. Now, I'm going to take my fingertips and put them into my pockets, and my left one is going to go up to the top. My right one is going to come over and kiss it right there. So up to the top, put it in my hands and pockets, put to the top, boom, smack. Does that make sense?
It does.
Up to the top, boom, smack.
This is the point where a lot of times people get really confused. Which one goes on top, which one goes underneath?
Always audition.
Yes,
I always audition. And then I just place a few pins in here. I make sure that, I audition this seam.
Just pin it at the corners.
Yep. And then I know if I sew from here to here, let me show you that way.
There we go.
It's going to come out the right way, all right? So always audition, but I definitely take several pins and put them right in different places. I could draw a line here if I wanted to, or I could use, some of you have guide beams on your machines, you could use that, stitch from corner to corner, outside corner to outside corner, and then it's going to fall right back into place, and you won't know where the beginning and where the end was.
Yeah.
So do you want to go ahead and do that while I answer some questions?
Sure.
Okay, so I'm going to just place, again, a couple pins in here, and Sandra's going to sew this from outside corner to outside corner. All right, just like that, and we'll answer some more questions. All right, let's see. Marianne said it finally clicked on sewing the pieces together without tools. Yeah, you really do not need tools for this, Marianne. You're absolutely correct. You can do this, again, with just knowing that however wide your strip is, that's how far you want to cut it from where they intersect. So, Christy said this is her favorite way, and the video is in the club. It sure is, yes. This video is in the club, and I think we also have some videos out on YouTube now for this method as well. So, any other questions? Let us know. Okay, let's take a look down here. And again, you can see that she sewed from corner to corner. All we would do is trim this back, and look, you have that all sewn in. Obviously, that would have been cut.
Yes.
And you just sew the rest of this, and you don't know where it began and where it ended. That's the beauty of this method, is because it's going to look like a mitered seam.
Yep.
All right. Now, the next thing we want to talk about, we've got a few other themes.
Show that
we'll do
one
this real
first.
quickly.
Because somebody wanted to see what it looked like after you did your mitered corner.
Okay, so after we get our binding sewn on, do we sew it by hand on the back, or do we do it by machine? Well, there's a couple different ways to do this. So let's take a look at this one that I have as an example. This was done on the front, and I'm going to take it around to the back. So right here is where I put it. Now, here's a tip for you, a glue stick. I love gluing my bindings.
Yes.
It's fantastic. So what I'll do is I'll take a little glue stick, and just in those seam allowances, just give a few little dabs, not very much glue at all. And then I bring this over right here. Let's get an up close of this. And you can see that the binding, I have it just a titch over where that seam allowance is. Now, when I go around and I do that, guess what happens, guys? This means that I can come from the front, let me do that, and now I can stitch in the ditch right here from the front. Stitch in the ditch on my sewing machine. Guess what's gonna happen? It's gonna go perfect right along there.
Edge.
So for those of you who want the look of hand stitching from the front, then just, use this method of the glue stick's gonna become your best friend so that you get it absolutely exact. I even like it better than clipping it, because I know it's exactly where I want it to be. It just goes over top of that seam allowance, and then it catches both the front and the back at the same time. Now, for those of you who like to hand stitch, which I'm right there with you as well, I love to hand stitch my bindings, although I don't hand stitch if it's a quilt that's gonna be in the wash a lot. Yeah. So
Now, another thing, Kris, though, if you take that to the iron and just ever so slightly touch your iron on that glue stick, it'll stick it down.
Yes.
And so then that way you don't have to worry about pinning it, or you don't have to worry about clipping it or anything, because that glue will stick and it sets it very fast, and you don't have to wait for it to set.
Yes, good point. Now, the next thing, if you're going to be doing this by hand, you want to make sure that you use the same color thread as you do as your binding. And then, although look, I'm using black thread and you don't even see the black. And the reason for that is because when I go into my quilt, I'm going through the fold of that binding. And when I pull on it, it just kind of sinks right in. So again, just little stitches. And I love to do it by hand. I really, really love doing it by hand. But again, if it's something that's going to be washed a lot, I usually will do it by machine.
Yeah, if you're doing like a table runner or a wall hanging of some kind, then by hand works great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then to show the corner here, the mitered corner, all you're going to do is you just bring one side over And the next side over, you want to make sure that that corner falls into the corner. All right, so corner to corner, and you just continue to stitch all the way around. So very, very simple to do.
And the glue works great on the mitered corners also.
Exactly. So anyway, you can see we have a couple of examples quickly here. This was one of ours. This binding was done by machine, but it was also done on the top. And so many of you love to do it on the top, and that's perfectly fine too. You're just going to stitch about 1/16 of an inch on the inside here, okay? And it catches on the front and the back. That's if you were going from the back to the front. But again, if you're going from the front to the back, all you do is you stitch in the ditch. You don't even see the binding in there. Let's look at this one, okay? And you would catch it in the back. Now this one is also an example of doing the hand stitching on the back. So, you know, different strokes for different folks. Some people prefer one way over another. For me, it always depends on what you're stitching. So those are a few of our favorite tips for doing binding. We talked to you about calculating the binding, how to prep the mitered corners, and also 2 different ways of joining the ends. We've also talked about machine binding as well as hand binding. So there's a lot of information there for you.
There's a ton.
And we've got one more thing to cover too, but we're going to do that in theme number 3. So we hope you were able to learn something new. And don't forget, we have a free handout for you that you can download on our website right here.
And it's
that goes
also
through
in the
all
club.
of this. And it is also in the club.
Yeah.
But it is free for everyone, so make sure and download that and share it with a friend. All right, we'll be back as we talk about bias versus straight of grain and when to use what. And we'll talk about that in our discovery coming up next. So watch 3 Things Live, where we always have something to make you smile,
Something to learn.
and something to discover. Let's go. We're going to help you create a quilt this year that not one other person on the planet will have, because it's your story.
What do I want to leave my little hunter?
What we are going to invite you to do is that you're going to create a 12.5-inch unfinished block every month, according to a theme.
I pulled those clothes out and I sat and cried for probably an hour because it was all of a sudden my dad's presence was there. I think that's my legend block.
I truly believe in life being a village and being a good villager. And this is a great way to leave my story so that my kids can see that being a good villager and telling their stories are important as well.
We would love to invite you to be a part of the Stitch Your Story Challenge for 2025.
These represent what I have done this last year. I've been to therapy, I don't know how many times, but this last year I could let go of a lot of things. I let go and I am the happiest I've been for a long time.
I just know that as I'm putting my blocks together and that I'm remembering and I'm kind of digging in. And if you haven't jumped on the Stitch Your Story train, you know what? If there's a reason that you haven't, maybe you don't have the time freedom or
Right.
that, but if you do, it has really been a little bit therapeutic.
All right, welcome back everyone to theme number 3. This week we're talking about going back to the basics, and today we've been talking all about binding, and we've given you a fire hose of information today, but we didn't want to leave without sharing a few other thoughts. And one of those thoughts is about straight of grain versus doing it on the bias. When do you use what? So what would you say for you've got to use bias on for sure?
On a corner.
On a corner?
If it, on a rounded
There
edge.
we go.
There we
Yes,
go. That's what I mean.
yes.
If your project has a curved edge of
Yes.
it at all, I definitely would go
Scallops.
with a with a bias binding
Because it has more stretch.
Yes, it has more stretch and it lays smoother.
So
you definitely have to do that if you have any kind of a curve.
Yes.
That's what I should say.
And so this, and someone mentioned earlier in the comments that this would be, sometimes they like a straight grain. I'm going to show you 2 examples here.
Here.
There we go. This one was done on the straight of grain, okay, which with a striped binding is going to go across, whereas if you were to do it on the bias, look at where the stripes go.
Yes.
Okay, the stripes are at more of an angle. So when we kind of fold this in half and you see this, you can see how that's going to look on a quilt, which is super, super cute. Let's go ahead and, can you hold that for me?
You bet.
Please. And then this one, you can see the difference between the 2. And they're just 2 completely different looks. So it just depends on what you want for your quilt. Do you want that design to go on a diagonal, or do you want it to go straight of grain, which is straight across? Now, one of the things for people that don't like bias is because sometimes you feel like it's a little bit harder to cut. But we've got videos online that show you exactly how to cut your bias binding.
Yes.
And it really is so very simple. In fact, just a couple weeks ago, I showed how you could get almost 5 yards of bias binding out of just 1 fat quarter. Can you believe that?
Yeah, that's amazing.
So it is pretty cool. So definitely straight grain's a little easier to cut. What most people will say, you actually have less waste when you do a straight grain.
Yes.
But you know which piece is actually stronger to cut?
The bias.
The bias,
Yes.
because those threads are interwoven at a diagonal all the way down. Actually, if you're doing a quilt, let's say for a baby or a toddler, that's going to be constantly thrown in the wash.
washed.
I would absolutely do the bias binding.
Yes.
Because again, it has greater strength on those edges and isn't going to fall apart
Right.
as easily. So, again, if you're doing straight grain, you only want to do it on straight edges. You don't want to do it on curves. You're just going to have a lot of lumps and bumps in that, aren't you?
Yes, yes.
So one final thing I want to share with you is this, and this is a brand new product that we just introduced not too long ago, and it's called the Winding Ease. Many of you enjoy actually making your binding strips, and then you like to roll them on something. Well, let's head over here to the ironing station, and I'm going to show you how this works. So this is done in conjunction. It's the same people who made the Binding Ease, and you saw that earlier. Sandra was, she had this iron here, and she was pulling this out. Now, where does this go? You can actually add it onto this little contraption right here. I'm going to pull this off. This was just introduced this past year, and a lot of you are loving it. So I just put that clip back on, and here we go. You can see that it's just winding right on to the spool. Now your binding is ready to go, and all you have to do is you just pull it off like this. And I would place a little pin in it. You can actually purchase additional spools if you wanted to do more than one at a time. I think it comes with 1 or 2. I can't quite remember. But you can actually buy additional spools. And then that way you have it ready to go on your quilt, and it just winds off like this instead of being all over the floor. So that is a discovery that we just made recently here at my girlfriend's quilt shop. I'm going to pull this off really quick, maybe. It really can fit on any size of ironing table. It just screws right on.
It's funny, Kris,
There we
because my
go.
mom used to take hers and roll them onto empty
Toilet paper tubes?
that and paper towel tubes.
Yeah, exactly. And that
'Cause,
works
you know, because
too.
they didn't have anything like this before, and you'd find them strung out all over the floor.
Yes,
So
exactly.
yeah.
And then you have pet hair all over.
Exactly. Oh wait, I don't have a pet. I don't have a cat.
There you
but
go.
yes, my mom did. But yes.
So Quilted Hearts, again, it's a brand new item. It's made right here in the US of A. And we love the ladies who created it because they're quilters themselves.
I tried to
Isn't
see, and
that
it
great?
doesn't say whether it comes with one or two
I think
of
it's
the spools.
just the one for
Okay.
right now. So,
Okay.
but there's extra spools you can get. So
Perfect.
anyway, a
That's
great
awesome.
contraption. You definitely might want to pick that up today. You can find it on sale over on our website at mygirlfriendsquiltshop.com. All right, everyone. We want to make sure and let everyone know, especially those of you who are local, we have the Meet Your Match event coming up this coming Saturday. Mike and I are going to be your hosts of the match game.
Oh, there you go.
The dating game, I don't know, one of those things. We're going to make sure that you find the perfect machine for you, because sometimes you don't know what you don't know.
And you don't know what you don't need.
Exactly, and we're going to
what you
help
do
you.
need.
Or what you do or you don't.
Yes,
exactly, and we're
exactly.
going to definitely help you do that. So join us at our Logan store this coming Saturday at 11 a.m. and we're going to have some food and a whole lot of fun as we help you find the right machine for you. Whether it's a long arm serger, quilting machine, long arm sewing machine, you name it, embroidery machine. We're going to be able to help you find that out. If you're not local, give us a call. We're happy to help you in finding out the right machine for you as well. In fact, we can even take you with FaceTime and take you around the store and make sure we find the right machine for you. It's a big deal. We know it's a big purchase, so we want to make sure that you are absolutely 100% pleased with your purchase. And this is why Mike and I do what we do. All right. Well,
Thank you, Kris.
thank you, Sandra. This has been a lot of fun. We hope you've enjoyed today's show. And again, if you did, be sure and share it with your friends, because this is one of those episodes that I think many of us will go back to over and over
I think
again.
so. Keep it, download the video.
Yeah.
Earmark it on your YouTube channel,
Yes.
whatever the case may be, because
Yes.
this is something I think you'll refer back to multiple times.
Absolutely. Don't forget to also download your free download at mygirlfriendsquiltshop.com. Thanks, everyone, so much for being with us today. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Keep doing all the things you love. No way, I've got the green on. I've got the green. All right, everyone. Have some cabbage or something on us, right?
Yeah, something.
Have a great day. Keep doing all the things you love, and we hope to see you again real soon. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.